Hi, my name is Eric Ryden, certified sommelier and owner of Le Grand Triage on the Upper East Side. Welcome to our next installment of our digital wine shorts filmed from the home office here in quarantine. Today we're going to be talking about tannins. We're going to be using a 1975 Bordeaux as kind of the backdrop to really talk about how wines age, can all wines age, what that process really kind of tastes like. Maybe not everyone's going to be able to play at home since we are using a little bit of an older one, but we really want to just give tannins the 15 seconds it's so frequently robbed of, and explain it a little bit more. So tannins, if you're not familiar with them, they kind of suck the moisture just straight out of your mouth, almost like you have to have a gallon of water for every sip of wine you take, or even similar to eating a spinach salad and how that kind of like messes up your sense of taste for quite a while afterwards, or even having oversteeped tea. Those are tannins. So this is the wine, 1975, from a sub-area called Grave within Bordeaux. 1975 was a pretty good year, like B+, A-, really comparable to some other awesome years from the region, but maybe yielding a little bit more tannins, which is great for our lesson today, but we'll see how that translates to flavor in just a second. We are going to be using a special wine opener called an Asso to open this bottle of wine. An Asso has two prongs, one a little bit longer. We're going to wedge that longer edge. Look at that gunk in there. We're going to wedge that longer edge in there, and then we're going to kind of shimmy it down. Ooh, trying not to push the cork in. Looks like this one is a little sensitive, so give us 1 sec. We're going to kind of come back and maybe show you exactly how we're going to do this in just a sec. So we're shimmying this down. The cork appears to slide down a little bit, but part of this exercise is that we can actually use the Asso to bring it up every time it goes down. So we just need to make sure we're coming up more than it's going down. So if it goes down, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we are having to constantly kind of go back and forth. We're losing the battle, but we're gonna win the war, guys. So here we go. Now we're back to kind of being level with the actual bottle, but we're getting more and more of these two prongs of the Asso on either side of this cork. Let's just hope this cork is in better shape than, oof, looks like we're doing some damage here, guys. Hopefully this cork will make it through. We'll see. Hopefully this wine will make it through. Not sure if you guys can hear that. It's actually making noises. I think the blades of my Asso are actually cutting into the cork, and we're actually doing more damage than we are. We might have to call this cork dead and actually push it in and filter the whole thing anyway. Because, yeah, as I suspected, our Asso, the blades actually sliced through the top end of the cork, which was really moist. So some of the wine may have actually made that a little bit wet. And if you actually look inside, you're gonna see the top half of that cork. We're actually gonna push the cork in as much as it pains me to do so. We're gonna use this chopstick and actually just push it in. You thought chopsticks were single use. You can actually also use them to push in the corks of your 1975 Bordeaux, right? Just gonna use this wet paper towel to kind of clean the edge here. We do have a lot of kind of gunk on this wine, so I'll just clean it a little bit so it's not as gunky. So now we've got our cork is inside, and we were going to filter this anyway to get the tannins out, but now we're also going to be filtering that cork out. All right, so we are going to filter our wine. We were going to do it anyway to try to get the tannins out, but now we kind of have to get all the cork out. The first thing we're going to need is a decanter. So we'll grab our decanter. The next thing we need is a funnel. And the last thing we're going to need is a standard issue coffee filter. So, boop. We've got our coffee filter, we've got our funnel, we've got our decanter, and we're just simply gonna pour it through. You're gonna see a lot of that cork coming through. Right now it's not catching a lot, but trust me, you will see this filter is gonna catch a lot. Not just the cork, which is gonna be the obvious pieces, but we're also gonna catch a lot of tannin. So I'll just routinely pour this in each time. Again, the cork is gonna be the obvious things that it's gonna be catching, but more importantly, the tannins, which you're actually gonna see. If you've ever had a bottle of wine and all the gunk down at the bottom, the sediment, that's actually discharged tannin. When we say discharged tannin, it's essentially tannin that has broken down in the bottle. Once we actually finish decanting this and we have all the sediment caught in this wine filter, we're actually going to show you this, I said wine filter, but really this is, again, just a average coffee filter. We're going to see all the tannin that's stuck in this coffee filter, and you'll actually be able to see the physical manifestation of tannin. Pretty cool. All right, so while this is finishing filtering, you can actually see some of the tannin that's actually stuck to the side of this bottle. You can also see our good friend down there, Mr. Cork, who obviously got pushed in by our chopstick. We are going to take it out. Got nothing better to do while we're waiting for everything to finish filtering. So if you ever get a cork stuck in your bottle, but you want to take it out because you don't want people to know what a boob you are for having gotten your cork stuck in your bottle, you can always try this trick, which hopefully I will execute well. And right now, so far, we've had one thing go wrong today. How many more will follow? Boom. And there's the cork. And now our wine bottle is free of the cork, but you can still see plenty of tannin. So we just finished filtering this. It took about a half hour, kind of a long time given the age of this wine. We don't want to expose it to too much oxygen while it's filtering, because oxygen is actually maybe not your best friend when we're talking about older wines. So 1975, we actually want to limit that amount of oxygen. So oxygen is actually the catalyst for when we talk about breaking down tannins and actually turning it into the sediment we see here. When you have young wines where the tannin is actually integrated into the liquid, that's what creates that astringency that you taste that dries your mouth out. But over time, as oxygen is exposed to that tannin in the actual bottle, it breaks it down and creates sediment. So we'll give you a quick sneak peek here. Just a sec. Let me just grab just a simple plate and paper towel. Take this bad boy out and give you guys a closer look at what this looks like. So here you can actually see all of this gunk in here. That's actually some of the sediment that still has a little bit of the actual wine kind of very, very bottom that was filtering through it. But here on the outer edges, you can actually see the bits of tannin there, a little bit drier. And I'm just gonna sort of run my finger on here. You can actually see just how fine this stuff is. It's actually almost finer than sand. If you actually can, obviously you guys can't feel this at home, but it's almost like an exfoliant. Maybe even on my fingerprint here, you can even see just how microscopic these little bitty pieces of tannin are. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and taste this guy. Smells great. So let's give this a try, shall we? Somm technique. That's they teach you that in somm school. All right, so still a little cloudy. Smells. It's almost got this like balsamic sort of note. A little bit of like gunpowder or charcoal. It's crazy. It sounds almost like the like burnt pieces of meat that you'd have like at the bottom of a pan with like a little bit of like juice, like au jus kind of meat sauce kind of situation. I know that sounds crazy and probably horribly unappetizing, but that is what this smells like. Maybe I'm just hungry. Let's see how it tastes. That meat juice, whew, that meat juice quality actually kind of comes through. You also get a lot of acidity still in this wine, which is kind of a small indicator of a lot of life left in this wine. I wouldn't say a lot of life left necessarily tannin-wise, but really interesting just kind of how it's actually playing off in flavor profile. But essentially all those tannins that we kind of showed you earlier, those are building blocks for creating longevity in a bottle of wine. They essentially act as this chain, if you will, this length of time. And as that time goes on, it breaks the chain down little by little by little by little by little by little by little. And as that chain gets shorter, that sensation that sort of sucks all the moisture out of your mouth actually decreases. You have very tannic wines in their youth. Those chains are very long, creating more of an astringency and more of that moisture sucking quality. But as we wait over time, that chain gets shorter and that sensation is lessened. And when that sensation is lessened, the almost clarity that you find in wines is almost even more akin to water. This texture is so clean and pure and smooth that you don't have this like tannic weight in there. And so as we saw from the filter and even in the bottle, all those tannins, when we take them out, that's when we get more of that kind of cleaner version. You can actually still see a little bit even in the glass here. Our coffee filter removed some. If we were gonna do some sort of like ultimate taste test, we might actually filter this twice and make an even finer filter after we did it through the initial coffee filter. But cheers, not so bad, 1975, boom. Thanks again for joining us for our installment on tannins. Honestly, one of my favorite subjects ever. I could go on and talk about it forever. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to direct message us or comment below, and we'll get back to you guys. The wines that we're gonna taste next week, if you wanna follow along, we're gonna do one from Spain called Rialse, really great value wine that we're really big fans of at the moment. A Pinot Noir from Loire Valley in France that is to die for. We are really digging that right now. And then last but not least, a white wine that I think is really special. It's coming from Paris of all places, but tune in next week to find out more.